What's going on, shoe family? Kyle here from Does Kyle Dig It, the volleyball focused shoe review channel where we take signature and performance basketball shoes and review them for the sport of volleyball. As always, I'm your host, Kyle, both a volleyball coach and a volleyball player with an unhealthy shoe obsession. And today we're going to be talking about the Way of Wade 808 V5s. As always, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Drop down in those comments. Let me know what you think about the Way of Wade 808 V5s. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into these shoes because they have something special and new from Way of Wade that I'm mildly excited to talk about. So right now, these bad boys are retailing right around $160, which is relatively middle of the road as far as, high performance basketball and signature shoes are concerned. Now, they are the fifth model now of the 808 line from Way of Wade, which is the drop-in midsole line that is being offered through them. If you're not familiar, drop-in midsoles are where the entire cushioning and support of the shoe is actually detached and able to be removed from the shoe, unlike regular standard shoes, which have the cushioning and support built into the shoe beneath an actual locked-in some type of strobel that you actually then step onto and on top of, some type of thin insert, right? These are all built into one. I have a video talking about that actually on my channel, the differences between those types of shoes and why some are good, some are bad. So if you want to check that out, just, follow the link up here. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get into the breakdown of these shoes. As always, we'll start with that traction pattern. Now, on these shoes, we've got what I consider to be the classic herringbone pattern that pretty much runs the entire length of the shoe, obviously, but for a small bit that's missing here, where we're able to actually see the nice exposed carbon fiber mid-foot schlenk plate. These are pretty bouncy, I will say, especially on the actual snapback of these shoes, but that's just with the carbon fiber plate. We'll talk a little bit more about some of that actual bounciness that these shoes have to offer when we get into the cushioning and support, right? But continuing with the traction, we've actually got two different types of rubbers, right? So in part of it is the GCU rubber from Way of Wade, and then the other part is the tough rubber. So the GCU is going to be a polyurethane resin rubber, which I believe is the white rubber that runs the outside of the shoe. And then the black stuff is going to be the actual more traditional, the rubber, right? And it does kind of feel like that. And that's that tough rubber. What I will say is that this shoe had awesome traction. On clean courts, even on some of like the dusty courts and everything, still really, really good traction. The problem came when we got onto sport courts. Now, if you can see up here in the ball of the shoe right here, as we come through that traction, the herringbone pattern that is existent across the entirety of the rest of the traction of the shoe all of a sudden disappears here to have the number 5, right, for the 808 V5 written in that. The issue is that particular part of the shoe is very soft and almost smooth. And that is potentially right where you may be coming in on the ball of your foot for your lateral strides. And on a very dusty sport court, I had a lot of problems with these shoes. So I just came back from USAV Nationals for 2025, and this was one of the pairs of shoes that I did bring with me in order to play in. And I ended up having to retire them after playing in one set because this particular part of the shoe slid out on me 2 separate occasions on the really, really dusty sport courts that they had at Nationals. Now, if you've ever gone to any type of major volleyball event at a convention center, normally it is played on sport court as opposed to the regular, basketball courts that some people are used to. Those sport courts are plastic, they put together almost like little Lego blocks, and then they assemble them and have people play on them. They're rarely ever cleaned. They're normally very, very dusty, and they pick up more dust throughout the course of the actual event because there's dust throughout the convention center as well. That all led up to me sliding out pretty badly in these shoes. And you can actually see I've got discoloration that's very prominent right in that area of the shoe where that particular GCU material is really picking up discoloration from how much it's actually rubbing on the dust. So Normally, and what I was going to give these shoes before I went to nationals, when I was going to do my initial review, I was going to give these shoes somewhere in the 9.5 out of 10 range for traction and support. However, with that slide out issue, I would say that they're more of an 8.5 out of 10 on traction. If you're playing on a clean court or an even just moderately dusty basketball court, you're not going to have any issues. And the wipe off is really easy on these shoes, even if they do pick up a little bit of dust. The issue is going to be if you actually want to play with these at an event that is using sport court, especially dusty, dirty sport court. I don't think I would recommend these because you do not want to take that risk of sliding out in a game that actually has that big of stakes. So to wrap up traction, given that caveat, 8.5 out of 10. On any other type of court besides a really dusty sport court, 9.5 out of 10. Really, really awesome traction otherwise, but just not on event sport courts. Now, as we move our way on up, let's go ahead and let's talk about that cushioning and comfort of the shoe. Now, like I said, these are that drop-in midsole offering from Way of Wade, and you can see the entire actual cushioning and support of the shoe comes out. Now, this is actually the new selling point of the 808 V5 over its predecessor, the 808 V4, as the new drop-in midsole here is super boom as opposed to just regular boom. And I will say this stuff is very springy, and it is very lightweight, and it is very cushioning. I think that this may be the number one shoe for me as far as step-in comfort is concerned. When I put my foot into this shoe, it feels like I'm stepping onto a cloud with the way that this midsole is set up. It is just so soft and plush that it feels amazing. Now, normally I worry about something like that in these types of shoes because if it is that plush and that soft, a lot of times that leads to bottoming out in the heel. Now, if I was doing really heavy heel dominant strides in these shoes, sometimes it felt like I might be bottoming out a little bit, but this Super Boom is actually very, very responsive, and it didn't allow me to bottom out even with the really heavy strides. Now, as you can see, these shoes have a really, really nice curved shape here around almost like kind of a plasticky heel counter piece at the heel of the shoe. Makes for really great heel to toe transition. So there's no clunkiness in the heel, and that's why I don't think I ever really felt like I bottomed out despite just how soft that Super Boom cushioning feels. What I would say is that these shoes, the new Super Boom is amazing. However, if you have watched my video on drop-in midsoles versus standard cushioning support in shoes, what I will say is that you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of drop-in midsoles because it's detached from the actual shoe and leads to, micro movement and potentially, micro trauma to your foot. That being said, given that caveat that I have against drop-in midsoles, this shoe for cushioning and support is a 9.5 out of 10. If it wasn't a drop-in midsole, it would be easily a 10 out of 10 shoe. I hope that eventually Way of Wade releases a shoe that has Super Boom technology in the actual, standard offering of the shoe, but not in a drop-in midsole that feels as good as these shoes do when you step in. Great stuff. And really great court feel too. You've got this nice low minimal design that even though this cushioning is so smooth and so plush, you don't have any diminished court feel still. So that was a really nice benefit to the shoe. And I can see why guards might really like to wear these in the basketball sphere because they do have really nice cushioning in sport. They feel nice and soft, especially for those jumps. But you don't lose any of that nice court feel. You feel very grounded. You feel connected to the court still, which is definitely a big bonus on those shoes. Now, moving our way on up the shoe, let's talk about that lockdown and stability. The materials for this shoe, they don't feel bad necessarily, especially on the sidewalls here. Whatever kind of synthetic material they're using here feels really good. But the synthetic kind of textile that they're using for the interior of the shoe, very, very thin. It's very light. I don't think that it's going to last a long time from wear and tear. I can actually see, kind of here on the side where some of the holes that they have in this textile material have already grown a little bit larger just from me wearing it. So I would be skeptical to see what the longevity of this shoe is, especially if you're wearing them very, very frequently and consistently, unlike me, who's only wearing them, once in a while as I'm rotating shoes in and out, trying new shoes all the time. I don't always wear shoes that frequent. But that being said, especially on the one of my shoes here, now I got the yin yang colorway of these, so they're kind of the mixed match black white. On my black pair here, on the inside, you can see I've got serious scuff marks already on some of the material. So like I said, I think the material longevity is something that's not going to be super great going forward. However, I did go true to size on these, and I think true to size is the way to go. They fit just a little bit narrow from the way that they are, but not so bad that it bothered me. You had plenty of room in the toe box, and you do have, just like on most way-away shoes, nice wide outrigger out here for real good lateral stability and everything. Now, as we make our way on into the interior of the shoe, though, the tongue here it's not super plush. It's plush enough, more so than some other offerings from some other companies, but it's just a standard tongue, nothing crazy to write home about. And since these are kind of like the flat, stretchy laces, just be careful when you're lacing them down across the top of your foot. Don't go down too hard, or it might feel like they're biting in. But the rest of the shoe, we've got nice, I don't want to say nice, it is the most minimal cushioning for heel and interior support for the inside of that. So nothing spectacular. It's cushioned enough though. So for the lockdown and stability of these shoes, I would say probably somewhere in like the 9, 8.5 out of 10 category. The materials feel a little bit cheap on the midsole of the shoe. Does allow for great breathability, and these shoes are nice and lightweight. Average weight of my shoes is 12.5 ounces. These bad boys are coming in at around like 11.8, 11.85 ounces. So they are under the average, but not so much so that it's significant, but they are very breathable. However, I don't think they're going to be super durable going forward, as you can already see by some of the scuffing that my models have taken and only a handful of uses. Now, as we wrap up these shoes, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of drop-in midsoles because of the potential for micro trauma to your foot. But this new Super Boom technology is really, really cool. These shoes just felt so comfortable and super springy on foot. I mean, just there is so much bounce to these shoes when you combine how bouncy the Super Boom is with that nice carbon fiber midfoot shank plate that's running through these. I was jumping really well in these, and I felt very cushioned. I just worry about the issue that drop-in midsoles have long-term with micro trauma as you wear them. Probably why I will not wear these that much in my rotation. But I definitely still will wear these from time to time, probably more so than the 808 V4s, just because of how much bouncier and how much more comfortable these bad boys felt over that particular shoe. But if you have a different opinion of them, drop down in those comments. Let me know what you think about the Way of Wade 808 V5s. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Are you planning on getting a pair? I've seen a lot of really cool colorways that are coming out for these particular models. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity there. And at $160, not a bad price point, especially because you are getting that Super Boom technology and that bounciness. But as always, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. Again, drop down in those comments. Let me know what you think about the 808 V5s. I do dig them. It's just that, again, with that caveat of the drop-in midsoles and long-term use if you are deciding to get a pair of these. But that being said, that will do it for the Way of Wade 808 V5s. This has been Kyle from Does Kyle Dig It? Signing off.